Good
Hi.
afternoon. You want me to go ahead and get started, Maria?
Yes, please do.
Well, sure. I'm certainly glad that you all are able to join us. If my eyes wander, there are different parts of my screen that have different things on them, so I don't mean to not be looking at you wherever you are looking at me. But we've moved into a new world of spending far too much time in these kinds of conversations, but we're certainly glad that we have this technology that enables us to continue to touch base and communicate with each other that way. Also wanted to just express how grateful I am here that in Jacksonville, for the most part, it seems that we've missed an awful lot of the nastiness of this particular virus, and we're lucky to be here in this particular part of the country, I guess, to not have to suffer through some of the things that the rest of the world is. But in the meantime, we're going to be safe and keep ourselves moving forward in a safe way. So that's what we're looking forward to here. I wish that we could just go right back to having everything be the way that it used to be. I'm doubtful that that's the way it'll be. We'll have some sort of limitations on what it is that we're able to do in person. But thankfully, the library was able to make a pretty seamless, relatively, for our user groups, switch over to an online modality for delivery of our services. And we've little by little been bringing back in some of our print related services as well. So for example, let me back up. You'll find pretty much everything that we're doing is off of the library's homepage. Is a link to our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's where you'll find all of the most current information that we have available. And if you don't find something there, we've got folks online most hours of the day, at least, to get back to you pretty quickly with some kind of an answer to the question you have. And then last week we started delivery of print resources as well for pickup. And hopefully we'll be able to resume some of our interlibrary loan related functions now as the state courier service gets back up and running, so that we'll be able to continue to support curriculum and research efforts of our faculty and students here. So mostly though, this is an opportunity for you to ask me questions and see if I have an answer for them. So let's follow that path of discussion of all of these things rather than my just chatting at you, okay? So we've got lots of folks online, and I know that Maria has some questions as well. And before we go to, I want to thank her for pulling this all together. This was an idea that we'd watched some of my colleagues around the state do, so we're happy to be able to do that, and I thank Maria for putting it all together. All right, so who's got a question?
So again, feel free to put your questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask directly, feel free. So a question from Burl. Resuming ILL would be awesome. I lost an ILL request I made through the JAX Public Library. Maybe if your ILL gets back up, you could get get books from the JAX Public Library, even if they aren't open yet.
Yeah, we're thinking that we may be able to resume that service when we just have staff available to do that. And I have not spoken with Tim downtown to see if that's what he's doing with JAX Public as well, if they're going to be part of that. But anyway, we're trying to see if we can get some kind of a system back up where we're sharing materials among the libraries, at least. Even if our buildings aren't open, that we would have an opportunity for folks to pick things up. So this is still in the infant phases of getting this back up and figuring out how it's all going to work, and how we continue to keep everybody still relatively safe health-wise when we're shuffling things around like that. We do have a couple of things going on. UNF does belong to the Hathi Trust, and the Hathi Trust is a backup sort of system that was set up by about 150 libraries around the world participate in that, where you would have your resources, your print resources scanned, both things that are in copyright as well as out of copyright, and it's your backup version of those things. That's what HathiTrust was designed for. But since that did exist, they agreed to open up their resources. And so we have, the last figure I heard was about 40% of our print resources here on campus are also available now through this HathiTrust link. So be sure to check there for things as well. Also, if there are other things in our print collection that you have need for, we have been this entire time scanning chapters or articles from journals and things like that and emailing them to you. So if something is available here in our facility, we should be able to get it to you one way or the other. We're working now on being able to get things from other libraries to our folks as well. But I'm glad that we're starting to have those conversations. It'll take a while to get all of the policies and practices and things set up and agreed to among all the different participants, but we're starting down that conversational path right now. So hopefully we'll get it all going as fast as we can. Did that answer your question?
I wanted to kind of make a comment and a question. First of all, thank you so much to everybody at the library who's been supporting us as we are starting, or as we made the pivot to online teaching. I know, for example, in special collections, Susan's been helping Dr. McCarl get his digital archives summer B class up and running and making some of the special collections material available to us in an online format. I was kind of wondering if you could tell us just a little bit more about the sorts of library instruction. I mean, you know, Maria usually does for me like an hour-long instructional course, and what the options are for running those in remote formats, you know, for the rest of the summer, and then, you know, I guess potentially in the fall as well.
Well, that sort of thing has continued. As Maria could tell you as well, I'm sure, we have a number of librarians who teach in sections of other people's classes, and we even have an information instruction, research instruction course of our own, but those have continued. If you want someone to come and offer research methods type instruction courses, they're happy to do that. They can do that live for your course in whatever delivery mechanism you're using, Zoom, GoToMeeting, or whatever it might be. You've got that option. Contact your liaisons. If you don't know who that is, send a message to our folks that are online, and we'll figure out who it is that can be working with you. But we're very happy to do that, and we've been continuing to do that with a number of courses. So,
and is that the case also for asynchronous online instruction? Have you guys been doing recorded tutorials and things like that?
We have a number of those things that are already kind of canned, but if you've got something that you would like to have canned for your particular class, I'm sure we can figure out some way to put something together that would be useful to your students. So
great. I see that Marielle is here, so I'm going to hit her up later for her metadata.
Yes, but we've got a lot of opportunities for that. We want to encourage that continue as much as possible, you know, for what would have been an on-ground class, you know, and we try and replicate as well as we can that kind of instruction in an online environment.
Great,
so,
thank you.
Sure. And I'm glad to hear that the Special Collections is working through this too. They have maybe the more difficult road to hoe for the types of things that are in their collection and trying to make them available in some way to be useful, you know, 3D kinds of things that are useful in an online environment. But give us a shot and let us try to figure out a way to make it happen. You know, we want to be there and make that stuff useful. We've had Just so you know, one of the things we've had going on too, we've had some student workers helping us remotely who have been transcribing handwritten things from special archives, for example. So then that makes an old letter then is searchable in the future. So we've been doing some of that kind of work as well behind the scenes. Uh, that we can, some things that we can do from home. So that'll give us better access to this material for the long run.
So Brent, to answer your question from earlier, Burl responded and said, yes, as best as it can be for now, thanks.
Yeah.
So you did answer his question.
I think all of the things we have going on today are as best as we can be for now. I'm hoping we can get back to a much more normal routine. I was having a conversation here. I've been coming into the physical facility here for about 4 weeks now, working on different projects and doing things here. We're lucky in our work environment in the library. We have a huge space, so it hasn't been something that's been risky for either myself or the other people working here because we're all very far apart. But the library in general tends to attract maybe a certain set of people who have a hermit gene within them somewhere. And we've learned over the course of this that even if we do have a substantial hermit gene, we still like to interact with people. So we're doing that as much as we can with the modalities and the methods that we have available to us. But I know that's part of our discussions in opening up the library physical space as well, is that was one of the hallmarks of having our space available, was so that people could work together, and how do we manage that in a social distancing type rubric where you don't know who you're necessarily going to be near, but still enabling that sort of collaborative learning to take place, which was part of the thing that made the Carpenter Library a place that was very popular, because we had places where you could not only work individually, but where you could work together, and trying to figure out ways to make that happen. So, who's got another question?
I don't see anything in chat right now, but could you maybe expand a little bit about more of what the library might look like? I know that they've talked about like phase 1, phase 2, different capacities. What might the library look like when we come back from remote instruction?
That's a really good question. We're working with all sorts of scenarios. The first scenarios that we're working with is bringing staff back to the library in some form or fashion. What does that look like if we can bring back 25% of the faculty and staff, or 50% or 75%, that type of thing. Then we have a whole nother set of scenarios for based on timelines that deal with a 25% occupancy of the building, or a 50% or a 75%, and those kinds of things. And then coupling all of that with the best practices that are coming from federal, local, state, CDC guidelines for maintaining a healthy environment where people can be together. So as restrictions in that realm are constantly shifting and changing, particularly here in Northeast Florida, over the last week, for example, just since we're not going to be doing anything here very quickly, not like overnight, we're constantly having to adjust those plans based on the moving recommendations for health-related distancing in particular, and whether or not we can have X number of people in the building or on the floor. One of the interesting things that came up from one of my colleagues at another university at a meeting earlier today was an easier one that I actually hadn't thought too much about, and that is we're pretty lax here in our building with food and drink requirements or limitations. We don't have a lot of them. However, if you're supposed to be wearing a mask, then food and drink really are not applicable if you're supposed to keep your mask on. So, just things like that we're thinking about, how to manage that sort of stuff. How do we even monitor how many people we have in the building and whether or not what those numbers are and what the balances are, and making sure we can do those sorts of things. So we have two kind of different scenarios. One is staffing back up the physical space, and then there's an opening of the physical space to our students and faculty and staff who are on campus who want to come and use things here. So I didn't see the whole question, Merle. The blocks of time to do something.
Right. So early in your phased-in reopening, please consider allowing people to sign up for blocks of time to access the printers or the computers. It should be easy
Right.
to set up some way to schedule that online. Lots of people don't own printers, and it is recommended in one of my courses this term to take exams on library computers to make sure our personal laptops or devices don't freeze during online exams. Limited scheduled access like that would be very helpful and should help with counting the people using the building by the hour and day, etc.
Oh, sure. We can count them retrospectively. The issue is whether we can count them in real time. That's our biggest thing at the moment. But anyway, we're working on different scenarios to deal with that. Yeah, when you've got exams in particular, something that might be timed, I'm sure that getting bumped off your connection from home it's not a good thing to have happen during the middle of an exam. But we're working with a whole bunch of different scenarios with types of things that are available in the building once we get to that point. And that I do not believe that will happen anytime really quickly here. We're looking at timelines that are farther down the road. The university administration is taking a very cautious approach to being sure that in both the cases of bringing faculty and staff back to campus as well as students back to campus, that we've got the systems and protocols in place and set up so that we can be as healthy as possible. There's no way we can guarantee health for anybody. We've never been able to do that, but we want to do things that are prudent given the current environment that we're in. So, but we're working on ways. We haven't been going through the detail yet that would get us to a place where you would sign up to use equipment ahead of time. That's a good option though. That's something we have the technology to do that. We'll have to decide whether that's the best way to manage the sharing of equipment and that sort of thing that's in the building. But it's good to know. It's all here waiting for you to come back and use it, that's for sure. So I hope that answers the question, as you said, as best as we can in today's environment. I was really glad we were able to loan out most of the laptops and things that we had, and we created systems and processes so that students could take them home during the when everyone went home for spring break and then didn't come back. So we've got those things going as well. If somebody does need to bring back equipment, we had a number of students who had graduated who brought back equipment. That also can happen on those Wednesdays. If you check our website, I think it's 11 to 1 on Wednesdays. You can bring stuff back to the vestibule for the front door of the library, and we'll receive things at that point too. If you're bringing things back, that's also the time when you pick up things that you've requested ahead of time, and we pull it and check it out for you and bring it there. So, and right now we're just doing that one day a week, and that seems to be pretty manageable for both the staff that we have here as well as the load of people that are asking for things. If that changes, if either one of those things changes, we'll adopt and come up with a new rubric for it. The staff and faculty here in the library have been very flexible, and that's been a wonderful thing. working at home as well as working in the building from time to time.
Earl says thanks.
Yes.
Any other questions? Sorry, somebody's coming in.
I can only see 5 people at one time on my screen, so I don't know who else there.
So while people are thinking of their questions, I've got one. So yesterday, it was announced that the Board of Governors will meet next week to present a plan on how to reopen the Florida universities. Do you
Yes.
have any idea on when or what, how does that affect us? Who goes first?
The Board of Governors has been trying to work things as at a system-wide level, I guess, for all of the universities in the state, and with some understanding, though, that there are different parts of the state that are in different scenarios regarding the virus. As I mentioned when we started, we've been just extremely lucky, and I use the term blessed, to be here in Jacksonville, where we really just haven't even had a first wave yet that was at all insurmountable. Yes, there have been some deaths, and those are tragic, but from what we've seen in other parts of the country, I think we've gotten off pretty easy. So they're trying to also have the flexibility in there for different campuses to do different things based on the scenarios that are in your particular community. We'll learn what their parameters are at that particular point. What the deans here in academic affairs have been charged with is coming up with a variety of different scenarios, so that when they do have a response for us, or some guidelines for us, we'll be able to respond relatively quickly and have some things already thought through and ironed out. But a lot of what it is we do here in the library is dependent upon other decisions made about the university as a whole. So if the university as a whole says you need to wear masks if you're on campus, or you need to stay 6 feet apart, or you need to do this or that, we here in the library will also be mirroring those practices as we have here during the shutdown as well. So it's a moving target, as I've said, but we're anticipating that they will have some guidelines, but that those guidelines will be for opening, that is, will be a little bit dependent on where you are in the state and what the level of COVID-19 activity has been there. So I think that and here in Jacksonville, the university administration here, Dr. Szymanski, is cautious about making sure that we're following the guidelines that the CDC in particular puts out for minimizing the spread, I guess I should say, or the opportunities for the spread of the virus. In general, I think most of us have been a lot healthier than average because we're being stuck with ourselves, but we can't stay that way forever, and I don't think we want to. So we'll have to get together at some point. So yeah, we're going to give you as much of an advance warning as we can. So.
And Dee says that her dogs will need a weaning period. And,
yes,
I totally understand.
I've seen several memes on Facebook and other places about people's cats who want to know why on earth these humans are staying around all the time. So they're ready to get you out of their house too.
Right. Cats are frantically working on the cure to the virus to get their humans
the
dogs
out. Want you to stay home. The cats want you to go away. So, but for those of you who know me, I have glass fish, and they're always happy, no matter whether I'm home or not. So anyway.
So we talked a little bit about some of the services that we're doing as a library while we're remote. So the scanning and the polling of materials, special collections working to transcribe and make things available, instruction. What else is our library staff and faculty working on while away from the library?
The first group that was working just feverishly behind the scenes, what in a broad sense, I'll call them our acquisitions team, in locating, identifying the resources that we needed for online access. So that's all happening behind the scenes and continues to happen behind the scenes as we work with individual classes, with individual curriculums and courses, and as well to identify online type of delivery mechanisms for the content that a library typically provides. So, for example, one of those things that we did was a body imaging system that enabled biology and nursing classes and things like that to use a 3D imaging kind of software for being able to work in a lab, so to speak, without actually being in a lab. That was kind of exciting and interesting. I thought we had been intending to have that implemented for the fall, but we scrambled and made it happen pretty early after spring break to get access to that. Hundreds of other databases that vendors have been working to open up the access to, whether that might be increasing the simultaneous usage or removing simultaneous usage barriers or adding more users to contracts and things like that. That group has really been working behind the scenes, just making things available, identifying them and then making them available. There's always been updating going on for our research guides, our LibGuides, course related things. Luckily, we had already had a built-in link in the Canvas platform for all courses. So some librarians have been developing course-specific guides that then go for a course that's online now or being delivered online. So there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, in addition to what you would see is the typical part of our library world, having chat service available, email service available, texting available to get questions answered, research consultations provided for faculty as well as for students. For the faculty who are online, if we've got some of those, don't forget that we do provide a considerable amount of assistance with your promotion and tenure preparation. So we've got lots of folks who can help you work through that whole process to get you information that you need for that. So that's the more typical public side of things, but behind the scenes, a lot of the stuff happening with special collections and with acquisitions in particular has been going on. We've had interlibrary loan has been continuing as much as we can for the things that are scannable and deliverable electronically. So that group continues to do that kind of activity as much as is possible from home-based environments. But the shipping around of print materials is what kind of came to a screeching halt. So we still have a whole bunch of stuff that was returned to us by our users that when the system gets going needs to be shipped back out to their home libraries. So we're working with that sort of stuff too. But the library has been very busy doing a lot of things, most of which nobody ever sees when you're in the building either, that help get us the information out that we need to the faculty and students that need it. So it's been, we're lucky, I guess, in the development of librarianship that this happened at this particular time. So many of the things we've been doing in the last 8 weeks or so, we would not have been able to do at all 10 years ago, and very difficult situation maybe 5 years ago. So some of this stuff has just really recently been developed so that we're able to continue relatively seamlessly with the delivery of content, at least to support the curricular and research needs of the institution. So, and that's our priority here, is to support those two things that are going on in the UNF world. So we've got a great staff. We were very lucky also as well that we had very few, if any, vacancies when this all went into place. So we already had the staff hired that are working to do this. You may have seen the notifications that we've hired a new dean for the business school during this process. And that's been an interesting one to participate in that, with candidates where everything was done online, and even the new dean who will be coming from UNC Charlotte has been physically here to Jacksonville, I believe, during this time, but none of the interview stuff took place in that kind of an environment. And it worked relatively well, but we didn't have a big vacancy like that in any of our key positions. So that was very helpful, totally accidental, but very helpful that we were able to move things forward with the ease from the outside anyway, that we were able to do that. So
that's a really good point, Brent, because as some of us probably know, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of you being our library dean.
yes.
So if this had happened last year at this exact time, we would have been deanless. So well, probably would have been a different story.
This week is actually the week that I was here interviewing last year. So it seems just like it was yesterday, and yet it seems 5 years ago. So very different time, but glad to be here. And I've got I can't say enough, I've got a great group of people here that have been amazing to work with. I would much rather be working with you in person, but we're making it work here, and I appreciate everybody's support to keep our eye on the prize of continuing continuity of instruction is what the phrase we were using early on, and that's part of what it is we do. For those of you who are maybe faculty on the call, we'll do what we can to support your research needs as well. So give us a shot. If you're looking for something and having trouble finding it, let us know, and we'll see if there's any way we can go about getting it. We have had materials coming into the building through the regular mail service. So that's a possibility too. We just need to let us know what it is you need, and let us try to do what we can to find it. Okay?
Any other questions?
Hi to all the library staff that are on the call.
Yeah, if you've got questions, feel free to ask as well. In the meantime, I'll ask a softball question. So
Sure.
Seeing as how we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary, so what do you like most about UNF?
What do I like most about UNF? I've already talked about the people here. That would be my top thing on there. I think that working with my fellow deans and with the provost has also been a highlight. Honestly, that was one of the things I was most worried about losing. I had a very good relationship with the deans, the other deans at my previous institution, and luckily that has been met here as well with a great set of colleagues. We're able to share information and just chat and support each other that way. So after the folks that I have internally to the library and how wonderful they are, the next group would be the deans and the administration and academic affairs has been absolutely wonderful. The broader group in academic affairs as well, from student services and the CERT office and that sort of thing, have also been very helpful to my settling in here as well. I think the responsiveness of folks on campus has been great. It's been great to see the level of care and concern that goes on here, particularly that, I mean, I knew that was there, but particularly as it's come out during this, the crisis kind of mode that we've gone into, that's been very good. There are a lot of people who are very insistent on keeping their eye on the prize, and the prize being that of education of our students and their health and well-being in a variety of different forms and fashions, not just scholastically, but emotionally and as we work through their health and as we work through other things that have come up during this time, I know that the support mechanisms here at the university have been made available to students, faculty, and staff. This is just an admittedly weird time, and we're learning how to maneuver in it, you know. So I think that the support that everyone has shown for each other has been great. The internal communication in the library for fun things on Fridays and our staff newsletter and stuff like that has just been very helpful to try and keep people upbeat. But I'd like to have us, be able to be together as soon as we can, but we want to do that in a way that's going to keep people healthy and not worsen the potential for spreading of the virus. So anyway, it's been great. I can't say that I missed the weather of the winter in New England. So that's another good thing about coming here to Jacksonville after the people. So that's been very handy. It's been a good location for that. I think the relationship that I have with the other deans in the SUS libraries has been a good one, and people are very friendly there as well. So it's this, we're in a people business, and I think that that's the biggest part of what makes a great place to work and a great place to live. So good softball question. I'll get you a softball answer.
That was lovely. Thank you.
Comes from the heart. And no, I don't wear a suit every day during this time. So, yeah, you don't want me to stand up. Thank you.
We saw the social media post. It's all right.
Yeah.
7,000 views on Facebook, by the way.
Yes,
Good job.
So part of what we're doing here in the building, which has been kind of some things we had on our agenda to try and accomplish part of during the summer and part of during the fall. Thus far, just so you want a few statistics, we have removed, as of last count, 31,900 pounds of steel from the building. We have taken down almost 1.5 miles of linear feet of shelving. And this has all been accomplished through better shelving, I guess we could say. We've condensed our shelving. We're using the top shelves and the bottom shelves and things like that. So we still haven't gotten rid of anything from our print monograph collection. We will be doing some weeding, particularly in technology and healthcare, where we have some really old things there. But so this time has enabled some of us who've come in to work on that, in addition to maintaining our buffness here. During this time, we've been able to make a lot of noise in the building and not have it bother our users. But also the thing, if we do open up with some kind of limitations for distancing, we've got a lot more room now for people to spread out in the building. So we've opened up a lot of spaces on the 3rd floor in particular. We've also been doing renovation of the former cereals area on the 3rd floor. That will become our virtual learning center. So that will be something that we had intended to have open when classes got started in the fall. We're still hoping that will be the timeline. That space has been cleared out, and I thank those of you who were on the call who came in to help with that process of clearing out that space. And then the renovations will begin hopefully very quickly. We're waiting for the pricing for that. And then we will be able to create stations there for virtual learning. A lot of you may know that we have content now being delivered to us in 3D formats with apps and things like that. And we needed to have a space where students could effectively, efficiently, and safely use that kind of technology. The term I use, which maybe tells you my age, is the holodeck kind of version of learning, where you're actually in the space where you're learning about whatever's going on there. So that space still will be hopefully finished by the time the new semester starts. And of course, that's a space that people would have to come here to use. So I hope that we are able to be back open again by then for folks other than staff to be in the building and use that kind of space. So we're taking advantage of this time as best as we can to make our spaces even more beneficial for learning once the students do return to campus. So doing lots of things, but 31,900 pounds of steel is a lot of steel to come out of the building.
So no quarantine 15 or 20 for everybody who's been lifting all those heavy shelves and such.
For quarantine, we've had a group. It's a recycling company that's been coming in, so they've been working together throughout all of this. So I don't know if you want to call it quarantine as a group, and those of us who've been taking down the shelving have been working as a quarantined group, I guess you could say, getting that stuff down, a lot of shifting of books. And so if it worked that way, I would say I was banking my gym time, but I don't think that's how that works. But anyway, we're working here. Those of us that are able to do that have been coming in and helping out with that process. So that's been very good. Doing a lot of things that needed to be done, and this was a time where we could do them without disrupting other things. So that was, if you're making lemonade out of lemons, this was one of those kind of opportunities for that.
Absolutely. So any ending follow-up questions for Brent?
You can always send me an email. That works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to get a hold of me, an email to any of the library contact points that are on our COVID-19 page will eventually get to me. This is the page Maria just put up. Any of that, if you address it to me, somebody will forward it to me. But you're happy to contact me directly. I'm just at brent.mai@unf.edu. To answer questions that you have. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of real definitive timelines, which I know is what all of us would like to have. But we're working behind the scenes to make as much of this happen as quickly as possible and still be cautious about our health protection that we have in place. So, all right, very good.
Don't see any other questions, so I think we might be okay.
All right.
So thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for participating. This was wonderful. All right. Thanks, Maria, again.
You're very welcome. Let's do it again sometime.
All right. All right. Goodbye.